In the Huddle was created to give student athletes, parents and coaches an inside look at the journey through US college sport and all that comes with it. The demands, the experiences, the excitement and the opportunities available to our student athletes from around the world. Study and Play USA facilitates a comprehensive, customised approach for student athletes and families for their whole journey, from their high school preparation years right through to US college graduation. Hi, and welcome to this episode of In the Huddle with Study and Play USA. In this episode, we are talking about transitioning. In this case, we talk to US college graduate Koby Jansen about the transition from high school into college and then life after college for him. Welcome, Koby.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Great to have you. Koby, to kick off, mate, fill us in. Where are you and what are you up to?
I am in Stamford, Connecticut. It's a small town just about 45 minutes north of New York City. So it's on the East Coast. And yeah, just dealing with life. The quarantine and everything is been a bit more serious over here in America than Australia. So just staying inside and doing what we can to stay safe. So
yeah. Well, that's good to hear. And have you been able to work at all and continue your job in that respect?
We've been closed since about middle of March. I think March 16th was my last day being able to actually be working. And then I started working from home about 5 or 6 weeks ago.
Right.
So that's been good to at least get kind of back into that swing of things where I've got, something to do during the day. So
that's when you say work from home, is that hands-on, as in, because I know your work revolves around face-to-face clients. Do you want to just quickly share what your job is?
Yeah, so I work for the company's name is Limber. It's a personalized stretching company. So we work one-on-one with clients using our own proprietary technique that we see athletes, we see a lot of guys that work a lot, spend a lot of time sitting at a desk that are having problems with their body. So we go through that and we're restoring function to the body. So you could say it's kind of like physiotherapy and chiropractor, but it's all hands-on, and it's all stretching based. So it's great for athletes, great for everybody really. So since we closed down, I have not been hands-on at all. So we are hopefully going back in a couple of weeks. But since working from home, I've just been writing content for the company, writing blogs, a lot about tennis, a lot about other sports coming up. So that's been keeping me busy.
Fantastic, Koby. That's good to hear. Good to hear that you've been busy despite what's going on. That's for sure. But yeah, it sounds very, very interesting. But tell us quickly about your degree. And I know you did some postgrad studies as well. So yeah, just for the listeners, what was your undergrad and what was your study beyond your 4 years?
So I did my undergraduate degree in kinesiology with a minor in biology. So that kind of I'm looking at physiotherapy. So that's kind of what I want to do. So that was my degree. It was a lot. Adding the biology kind of gave me, one, it was partly to make sure I had all the prerequisite classes for the postgrad physio courses that are over here. It's a little bit different format than in Australia.
Yeah.
So that was why I added that minor into it. And yeah, so
good.
That's what I've been doing.
Fantastic. Okay. And look, I suppose just getting back to the work, I mean, a lot of families in Australia and, in other countries that we work with will ask us, how can my son or daughter make money and earn money whilst over there? And the answer to that is, well, there are several ways. And so for international student athletes can work on campus in any capacity throughout their 4-year undergraduate degree, but there's another couple of working opportunities off campus, which was usually for post-grad, but it doesn't have to be either, for international students as well, that probably very few people realise. One of them is called the OPT, Optional Practical Training Visa. So that's the OPT visa. And there's another visa as well, and I know that you're familiar with both of those. So can you just talk us through those, Koby, as to how they work and what opportunities they present?
Yeah, the OPT visa is basically just a 12-month extension of your student visa. So you're still on the same student visa that you're on when you're playing and studying, but it allows you to get a job in your field of study for an additional 12 months, and that additional time gives you a chance to find a job with an employer that could potentially sponsor you for a long-term visa, which that's much more important for people that aren't from Australia, where the H-1B visa, which is the big expensive visa, is the only option. But being from Australia, there's a work visa option called the E3 visa, which is getting a visa in America to work. If you're from Australia, it gives you a bit of an advantage just because there's this visa available, and it's getting a job in your field of study. So if you're a business major, then getting a job in the business sector. If you're an accounting major, getting a job as an accountant specifically.
Yes.
And it's basically a 2-year visa with the company that you sign with, and it's not too expensive. And every 2 years, if you're with that same company, then you get to reapply. And as long as you're with the same people, then you should be able to just kind of keep renewing it every 2 years.
Okay.
So being from Australia, it's a good place to be if you're looking to work in America.
Yeah, well, look, that's something that we often say to families. We're thankfully very well received anyway, as a country over there. But yeah, this visa sounds like a fantastic opportunity. And how many years are you into that visa for you, Koby?
I'm coming up on a year now. So I officially got the E3 visa in September last year.
Right.
So that's good for 2 years at a time with that same company. The only catch is if you can't, once you do get that visa, you can't, if you want to switch your job, if you want to get a new job, you have to leave the country and do the whole process again. That's the only catch.
Okay, that's fair enough. So to summarise, really, the OPT, Optional Practical Training Visa, and this which is open to anyone, any international student from any country, to extend their 4-year student visa by another year. And the E3 is more specifically exclusive to Australians. It's Australian-only visa. And again, both of them, you can work anywhere in the country, which is a fantastic thing. So thanks for sharing that, Koby, because I think there are some listeners that just probably not aware of that. They may already be in college and not aware of these opportunities. So it's good to know about them now. And certainly for people thinking about going to America, it's something that by graduating from college, it can lead to these other opportunities, which, obviously you're a great example of.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So look, today, the main theme, aside from what you're up to and this visa, I think this broader issue of transitioning is something that I'm reading about a lot and I'm hearing about a lot, whether it's professional athletes post their careers or certainly in our field when we're helping student athletes prepare for college. There's a big transition going to college, and then naturally for student athletes when they come to the end of their degree, and this is not only for student athletes in America, it's probably students the world over. Where now? What do I want to do? How am I going to use this visa? How do I get a job? Do I want to get a job yet? So there's another transition. So what I think, talking to you, Koby, you've got a great perspective because you've survived one of those transitions and thrived in college. So that's a transition out of high school into college, and now you're in that transition period right now when you finish your degree. So what are the biggest adjustments that, if we just go back, I suppose, to when you're in high school, preparing for college, you've made your mind up, you're going to America. What are some of the biggest adjustments you need to make once you arrive in America, do you think?
Yeah, it's not easy for anybody. I was only 17 when I started college, and I know for me I'd never really been away from my parents for too long, probably not longer than a week at a time. So it wasn't easy for me. But I think when I first got over there, I kind of thought I knew everything. I thought I was, knew what I was doing. I thought I would make friends easily, all that sort of stuff. And it didn't take me very long to realize that I wasn't quite as, I think you could say, smart as I thought I was. But if I got humbled pretty quickly in the first 2-3 weeks. And as soon as I kind of let my guard down and wanted to really just accept that I had a lot to learn about what it took, the difference between playing college tennis and tennis in Australia in juniors. It's a big adjustment. And just trying to be a sponge, everyone you talk to, the juniors and seniors on your team, your coaches, your academic advisors, your professors, all that stuff. You just want to kind of be a sponge and take in as much as you can. The quicker, some people, like I thought I was pretty lucky. I kind of figured that out quickly in a couple of weeks. I had teammates that, weren't as quick. Took them a semester, took them a year, some. So, it's not easy for anybody. And I think once you realize that everybody kind of goes through the same sort of experiences, and you can come out on the other side and start to thrive. So just don't go in there with a big ego, which is hard when you're a 17-year-old kid. Most athletes that play, I play Division I tennis. So most people that play Division I sports are kind of one of the better, if not the best player from where they came from. And now you're thrown into a situation where you're training with 10 guys that are probably better than you when you're a freshman. So it's not an easy adjustment. So just take in as much knowledge as you can early and put your ego aside for a little bit, which is not easy. So
no, look, yeah, it sounds like me, to be honest. When I think back to when I went to college and lost my first 8 matches, and you brought straight back down to earth, and it was great for me in hindsight. Not at the time though, didn't like that, but
exactly.
You're exactly right. It's a really good, and what you said. Obviously, we've followed your progress since day one, which has been a joy to watch, really. But and you did transition quite quickly, and you adjusted, and I think there are some good reasons for that. But I certainly think for myself, I was at least a year before I really settled down. That said, it wasn't a horrible year, but it was a year of some disappointments, and as I say, my ego took a bit of a battering for the better, really, in the end. So, no, that's good advice. I suppose the other big transition you have to make when you graduate is, the where to next conversation that you're going to have with yourself and your parents and your loved ones and all those types of people in your life. So for you, you've taken the option to stay in the US beyond your 4-year college tennis experience and your undergrad studies. So obviously you're in Connecticut, and coronavirus aside, you're doing very well and had a great experience there so far. But what are the things that helped you prepare for that transition out of college?
Yeah, it was, I think the thing that helped me was, it was, again, one of those things that at the time wasn't a good thing, but my second year of college, I played through the whole season with a shoulder that I needed surgery on my shoulder, and I was in a lot of pain throughout the whole season. And then kind of came home in the summer, had surgery, and had to miss the whole fall of my third year. And that process kind of made me realize that I didn't want to play tennis after I finished college. And because up until that point, I'd had aspirations to maybe try and go pro, play on the circuit, do that whole thing. And that time made me realize that I still love tennis. I still want to come back and play my last 2 years of college really well. But tennis long term was not going to be my solution. So I was forced to kind of think about, all right, what am I going to do next? So I had a couple of years to prepare for it. I kind of knew that physiotherapy was what I wanted to do. So I kind of had things that I was looking forward to. So my kind of last year of college, I was trying to soak up everything that I had. You know, it's those times when you realize that you don't get to do this forever. And the tedious parts of college all of a sudden become best parts. So it was just that, you know, the quicker you know what you want to do after college, I think the better. Not everyone is going to know that. But, you know, kind of trying to set yourself up and have a plan for what you want to do once college finishes, because, you know, once you finish college, then you're into the real world, and things aren't quite as easy for you. So wrapping your head around that quick is good. And yeah, and it was honestly it was a bigger transition for me, I felt, than even the original one, just because my whole life, tennis was my whole life from when I first picked up a racket. I was 9 or 10 until I was 22 finishing college, and tennis was all I ever thought about. And all of a sudden it wasn't. And but knowing kind of what I wanted to do, everyone was telling me I'm gonna go crazy not playing tennis, not picking up a racket every day. But I did not. That part of it wasn't the problem for me. It was just having a different mindset and taking my kind of competitiveness and putting it towards something else. So that's the big thing, I think.
Yeah, so it's a competitiveness that you missed about tennis more than anything, but you're obviously using that, so you're not losing that altogether, which is fantastic in a way.
Absolutely. Yep.
And again, it sounds like you know, a young 20-year-old Chris Bates talking when I hear you speak too. It's very similar. I mean, I guess, and it's not just us two. I'm sure this is quite common for a lot of people. So, but I think one thing that I hear there from, you know, in terms of advice for others, is that planning is important. But I think the other thing which you mentioned, but it may not have been obvious, is just I think there's a bit of a pattern here for you, Koby, and it's not just you. It's, again, with so many people. Where you are now is a product of good and bad things that have happened to you prior. And I think, you know, when we look at, you just mentioned your shoulder issue in your second year in college, and how that helped you probably change and start thinking outside the tennis box a little bit in terms of your future as well. And it helped you just gain that resilience to be able to do what you need to do in whatever you choose in life. So, but again, if I just think back, you know, one of the things we always admired about you, you know, is your ability to make the most of your opportunities and learn from your setbacks. And none were bigger in year 12, wasn't it? When you're school captain of a big school in Australia. So you've got a big responsibility there. You're a bright kid who's doing well, expects to do well academically at the end of the year. You're a budding college player in the process of talking to coaches, and then that all came crashing down one day. Do you want to just quickly talk to listeners about what happened to you?
Yeah, I think it was May of year 12, and you know, that's when everything's kind of started to ramp up on the recruiting side of things. I think we were scheduled to actually shoot our video the next week.
Yes.
And it was on a Friday afternoon. I think it was maybe the next weekend we're actually going to do our video, which is a big part of it. And warming up for tennis, playing basketball, and jump, and all of a sudden come down and something's not right. And, you know, I tore a whole bunch of ligaments in my knee, needed surgery, which kind of yeah, couldn't have come at a worse time. Threw everything tennis wise off the track. But again, looking back, it was kind of it it shaped me in a lot of ways because it made me develop a lot of other areas of myself. Honestly,
Yep.
it kind of took me not being able to play tennis for my whole of year 12. I didn't really have much of a choice other than to focus on school, and that was really good for me, I think, because I kind of tapped into something that I didn't really knew I had, but it was only because I'd never applied myself to school as hard as I did in that time where I didn't have tennis.
Yes.
And so that was really important for me looking back. And one of the main reasons that I got recruited in the end to the school that I did was because the coach loved the fact that I was able to bounce back from what happened. He it was a newer program. He was a newer coach. He was looking for people that he thought could be leaders, and that's
Yep.
kind of something that he saw in me, which would not have come about if it wasn't for what happened. And
Yep.
there's a lot of you know you have to go through some tough times to come out on the other side, and it kind of shapes you for those moments that really count.
Yep.
So any negative experience can be turned into a positive as long as you learn from it and try to use it as a chance to grow. And it was couldn't have, at the time I didn't think anything could have been worse than what happened, and in the end it turned out to be one of the main reasons that I am where I am today. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a very powerful message, I think, because if we're talking about transitioning, and we've acknowledged that that's not easy. Okay, so transitioning is a change, and we have to adapt, and that's not comfortable. Having an ACL injury is not comfortable. um,
Yeah.
Having these things go wrong is not comfortable. So it's very much about getting out of your comfort zone. Well, in order to get out of your comfort zone and then find comfort in that new zone, it takes time, and you need, the more times you've done it, I suppose, you've had setbacks, the more you're likely to be able to thrive when you do get thrust into a new environment. So that's why I think you've been able to do well. I think human nature is to try and avoid those issues and problems, and be great if we could, but if we look at them as opportunities to learn from and to develop, obviously resilience and renewed focus and all those types of things, and as you said, find out more things about yourself, then I think that's probably a really powerful take-home message for the listeners. And just, I suppose, on that note, Koby, I've sort of summarised what you said there a little bit, but we talk about advice, and we give advice a lot to student athletes getting ready for college, and that's our job. But I think listening to someone like yourself, for student athletes that are possibly listening, or parents of student athletes that are currently in college and maybe approaching the end, approaching their graduation, do you have any advice that you'd like to finish off with today for those kids? Because I think, that's maybe the forgotten transition a little bit. So do you have any last minute advice? You did touch on it a little bit, but just to summarize, 3 or 4 things that they need to, be ready for.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's one of those things that you don't know what to expect. It's a situation, once you start, like I finished college and started working full time, where all of a sudden it's I've got to support myself financially in an area that I'm not totally familiar with. But I think the biggest thing is just keeping your mind open.
Mm-hmm.
Once you finish college, even though you finish college, you're not supposed to totally have your life all figured out yet.
Yeah.
There's plenty of time to grow and get yourself sorted out. So, I'm now living in an area that a fairly high economic area. I'm living in a place that's fairly expensive place to live. I could have chosen areas that were much cheaper places to live, but it's, I'm using this time to really try to, find out exactly who I am outside of my tennis days. I'm not that far removed from it. I'm 2 years removed, so I've still got a lot to learn about myself. And you are one of the other things that's a big advantage of being a college athlete and that is international is that it's a door will always be open for you because of that pathway you took. If you bring up in conversation that you were a Division I college athlete or even just a college athlete anywhere, people are all of a sudden interested and they want to know more about you. That's just that just happens everywhere. It's whenever I'm trying to make connections with people, it's always one of the first things I bring up because people are always, especially for an international student, because you have to go through the transition of moving to another country when you're 17 or 18 years old, learn how to do your own laundry, learn how to take care of yourself, have to deal with your own meals. All those little things add up and it makes you grow up pretty quick.
Yeah.
And it is an advantage when you get thrust into kind of the real world because you're prepared for it a little better. But yeah, I don't have everything figured out. I'm still 23. I'm still a young guy. But it took me a while to realize that I'm not supposed to have everything figured out yet. So don't put too much pressure on yourself when you first come out. Things are not going to be perfect for anybody. I think that's the biggest thing. Just don't put too much pressure on yourself, and you're gonna learn a lot of things about yourself in the first couple of years of a almost new identity that you have to have.
Koby, that's profound advice, mate. I think very, very, very well said, and obviously you're living that right now. So not a better person really to learn from if I'm a young student athlete, in my opinion. So fantastic perspective, and really, really appreciate it, Koby. And I can assure you, mate, the way we see you and seen you from very young age through to now, there's way more to you than a tennis player. So that is certainly not your identity, that's for sure. So whatever it does become and what you decide to do, I'm sure you're going to do very well, as you are already. So, but mate, we're looking forward to catching up with you and when you're back down in Australia, and hopefully you can stretch me out. I've got a bit tight in my old age myself, so I'd love it if you could try and just edge out of some of those problems that I've got. That'd be great.
That sounds good. That was one of the things learning about starting to work there. I'm not very flexible either, so something everyone can work on.
Yeah.
No, but thanks for having me on, Chris. I really appreciate it.
No worries. It's been fantastic, Koby. Always great to chat.